Hello and welcome. My name is Bashir Fadl, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Salesforce Administrators Training session titled Sales plus Technology Prerequisites. A lot of times we start by jumping straight to the technology, Salesforce. Unfortunately, and what I've noticed is a lot of times we don't fully utilize it to the best. For example, you're driving down the highway, speed limit is 70 miles an hour, and everybody's driving 25 miles an hour because someone is slowing down traffic, whether it's an accident or something else, and you keep driving and driving for about half an hour through all the traffic to find out that everybody that's driving slow, because there's a car all the way up in the highway at the beginning that's driving very, very slow, moving at 25 miles an hour, and you look at the car and it's a Ferrari, and you're like, what is wrong with this picture? This guy's driving a Ferrari and only going 25 miles an hour, slowing everybody else. And that's what happens a lot of times with Salesforce. It's a very powerful tool, but we don't use it to the max. We don't benefit as much as possible out of it. And I think the reason is a mixture of two things. There's the sales side, there's the technology side. All right, let's elaborate a little bit more on that. A lot of the places that I've seen and worked, I've seen people that have a lot of experience on sales working on Salesforce. On the other side, I've seen a lot of people that have years of experience in technology that are working with Salesforce. The challenge becomes a lot of people that have years of experience with sales do not expose themselves to some of the basic technical skills when it comes to the IT part of it. And a lot of people that are very proficient in technology and development and administration do not invest in knowing more about the sales processes. So in our introduction, we want to introduce sales processes and what's known as lead management. And also from the technology side, we want to talk about things, basic things that we need to be aware of, such as business requirements, administration, and the SDLC process. I have a little confession, but you guys cannot repeat this. I've been in IT for over 27 to 28 years, up until 1995 when I started getting my MBA. I did not realize that there was a sales process. All I thought when I thought of the word sales was that person in a car dealership that's trying to sell me a car. There's no science to it, there's no arts to it. It's just someone that's trying to hustle me for my money. But then, as I got my MBA, I realized that there is a science to the madness. And so easy for us to jump into Salesforce and start playing around with our opportunities and leads and accounts and contacts and campaigns and reports and dashboards. But we always need to invest a minute or two getting to know some of those basic concepts. As you can see in the flow chart, we start with prospects makes contact. Well, let's turn you into the sales cars person. And I bought a car from your dealership last year. So making contact is either me reaching out and calling the dealership and speaking to you, or you reaching out since you have my records and talking about a new promotion, the new car that you're selling. Is the lead qualified? Do I have the appropriate credit? Am I interested in buying a car? No. Simply means that I cannot buy the car at this point for one reason or the other, either not the right credit or just saying no. And we're going to talk about lead management next. But for now, we'll just say no is no, not interested. Or yes, so we set an appointment, come out to the dealership, and I meet with you, determine the requirements, do your final presentation, and let's see if my needs are met. I'm looking for, now that I have kids, I'm looking for a minivan. That's what I'm interested in. Does the vehicle that you sell me meet those needs? Yes, you find me a minivan or a SUV that's good enough for my family and my needs. On the lower sides, we can see our needs met. Maybe it's the right car, but the price is way too high. And if the price is too high, it's a no for now, but are willing to negotiate. If not, end transaction. If yes, and we address the objectives, close the sale. An oversimplification of the sales process flow chart. But now that we have 7 steps of sales process, and again, different companies and different groups could refine that a little bit more. But on a higher level, we'll just say that there's 7-step sales process, and we're going to discuss each one of those so that it makes sense to us as we're looking at Salesforce as a business analyst, as a Salesforce administrator, or as a Salesforce developer. When we speak about a sales process or a sales cycle, it's basically a series of events or phases that occur during the selling of a product or service. First one is prospecting or prospect for leads. Whether I'm selling cars, whether I'm selling airplanes, whether I'm selling real estate, we must first have a customer or prospective customer. Identifying potential prospects is the first stage in any sales cycle and requires a solid understanding of the service or product that we intend to sell. As such, there are key questions that we need to ask before we even start that process. For example, what does my product do that no one else's product does? What problem or issue does my product overcome or solve? In today's world, for example, a lot of time prospecting for customers can also take the form of lead generation. So perhaps our website has a place for interested parties to enter their email addresses to learn more about our products. If I'm selling a car, am I selling the same car to a family that has 4 kids, preschool and elementary school, versus selling a car to a college kid, 18, 19-year-old? If I'm selling a house, does it make a difference if I'm selling a house to a couple that's in their 70s or 60s, or a couple that has 2 or 3 kids in elementary school? So that's phase 2, preparation. So at this point, we're researching the market and collecting all relevant information regarding our product or service. At this point, we develop our sales presentation and tailor it to our potential clients' particular needs. Are you buying a house? Well, if you have kids in elementary school, maybe school is an important thing to you. Versus someone who being close to the office or workplace might be the most convenient thing. Someone with kids might want a minivan or SUV. 19-year-old going to college might need a 2-door car. Which naturally leads us to the third one, which is the approach. And at this point is where we make our first contact with our client. Sometimes this is face-to-face meetings, sometimes it's over the phone. And then salespeople get into a lot more detail with approach. For example, there are 3 common approach methods. Number 1, the premium approach, which is presenting your potential client with a gift at the beginning of your interaction with them. The second one could be a question approach, which we ask a question to get the prospect interested. And finally, the product approach, which is giving the prospect a sample or a free trial to review and evaluate the service. Number 4, presentation. In the presentation phase, we actively demonstrate how our product or service meets the needs of our potential customer. Don't be misled by the word presentation, because we should also actively listen to our customers' needs and then act and react accordingly. Number 5, as you can imagine, is a tough one, handling objections. Perhaps the most underrated of the 7 steps of a sales process is handling objections. This is where we listen to the prospect's concerns and address them. Some statistics show that 44% of sales people abandon pursuit after 1 rejection, 22% after 2 rejections, 14% after 3 rejections, and 12% after 4, even though 80% of sales require at least 5 follow-ups to convert. And so successfully handling objections and alleviating concerns separates good salespeople from bad and great from good. Number 6 is closing. In the closing stage, we get the decision from the client to move forward. Number 7 is follow-up. Once we have closed the sale, our job is not done. The follow-up stage keeps us in contact with customers that we have closed, not only for potential repeat business, but for referrals as well. And since retaining current customers is 6 to 7 times less costly than acquiring new ones, maintaining relationships is key. Now that we understand the sales process a little bit better, whether we're within the sales team within the enterprise or whether in IT supporting Salesforce, The 7 stages of sales process development, we can now begin to tailor them to our own product or service and customer base. Cut out steps that are unnecessary to our particular business and focus on our customer. We now focus on identifying the customer's problems, developing a solution for the customer, and presenting the solution, being persistent, and very importantly, staying connected. Another area that's very important is lead management. You're at Thanksgiving dinner with your family, and your cousin's friend mentions that they would like to buy a car, and you work at a car dealership. That's a lead. You're having dinner at a restaurant, and your waitress mentions that she and her husband would like to buy a house, and you're a real estate agent. That's a lead. What are the chances that they're going to buy anything? Well, that is lead management. A lot of sales statistics show that around 80% of marketing leads never convert to sales. And so lead identification helps you determine buyer types you're after. Lead generation is all about capturing the ideal buyer. Lead tracking is where we gather intelligence and analyze interest, needs, wants of our suspects. Lead processing includes scoring and qualifying, which are key processes to organize, filter, and prioritize our leads by their potential value. And finally, lead nurturing is a task to build relationships with potential clients who are not ready to buy yet. Okay, Salesforce has all of those concepts, and now we build our technical skill when it comes to sales and lead management, so we understand better what leads are, what opportunities are, what contacts are, why we need campaigns, and all those opportunities make sense. Now, looking from the technical perspective, as I'm working with Salesforce administrators and developers, why do we need business requirements? In one of our videos, we're going to actually elaborate, and we have a project that we work on at Learning IT Courses Online, where we build an app. But on a higher level, we're going to talk about something that we elaborate a little bit more when we build that app is on Salesforce, we have all the different tabs that we need, opportunities, leads, contacts, accounts. And the VP of sales decided, you know what? Since everything and all of our sales team is in Salesforce, why don't we create a little HR related or recruiting sales app? So the VP of sales says, I need a recruiting app, and I want to be able to post all the positions that are there and the candidates that are interested in those positions. So I need a recruiting app, I need positions and candidates to be posted on that app. Now go ahead as a Salesforce developer and develop it. One of the biggest challenges that we're going to have is there's 20 of us, and all 20 of us go out there to develop it. At the end of the day, we're all going to develop something that's completely different. Your app is going to look very different from my app, is going to look very different from anybody else's app. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge, which is worse, is the fact that when we present it to the VP of sales, they're going to look at it and say, this is not what I asked for. So how can we make sure that what you develop is identical to what I develop, but more importantly, consistent to exactly what the VP of sales wants? That is what business requirements are. Business requirements are, you can think about it as a process, even as simple as a Word document, where we take requirements from the business as we refer to it, which would be the sales team in this case, or the VP of sales, that says, here's what I like to have, and you're going to ask them a group of questions. Questions about the look, the feel, the functionality. Uh, and again, you can enter that information through apps such as Jira, or some people will put it into a document, a Word document called the BRD, a business requirements document. You can even look it up or Google it online. You'll find a lot of templates, and choose a template that works best for your needs. In my case, for example, one thing that I like to do is actually create a prototype or draw something that I will sit with the business and say, this is what's going to look like. Is this what you want? So I would draw something like this, a little app called Recruiting with two tabs, one called Positions and Candidates. The Position tab is going to have the position title, job description, minimum pay, maximum pay, the date that it's open, and this is the information that I'm capturing. Oh, and by the way, date is going to be a date field. Status is going to be a drop down, so I'm going to need you to tell me what are the different statuses referring to the position, full-time, part-time, and so on. The location, is there a default location, or what values are we hiring for? Similarly, for the candidate, I want to capture the candidate's first name, last name, phone number, uh, and it's going to be a checkbox asking if they are currently employed, yes or no. And so when I show something like this, my business requirements document or whatever tool you want to use, basically it's before I even start developing and spending weeks and weeks and money from the business, the VP could look at it and say, oh, wow, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Or they can come back and say, you know what? I don't need this field, or I need that field, or some business rules such as the minimum pay can never be higher than the maximum pay. Okay, well, I'll put a rule in there. So that is very important, business requirements. Before we assign the Salesforce administrator to do something, before we assign our Salesforce business analyst to do something, before we assign our Salesforce developer to do something, we want to make sure we give them the right business requirements. Uh, the carpenter rule. Basically, we're using the carpenter rule, which is measure twice and cut once. In other words, I'd rather take more time making sure that you know exactly what you're going to develop or administer before you start working on it, and then that way we have to go back and fix things. So measure twice, take your time measuring, put in the right requirements, and that way you just have to develop it one time. Next, we'll move to SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. So from a sales perspective, I need to think of how developers and administrators think. And one thing that we all are taught is the SDLC process, which is usually sometimes called the system, usually the software development lifecycle. So before I start creating the recruiting app and dealing with the positions and the candidates and designing it, this is the process and this is the way our developers think. The planning in terms of the resources and the design and the licenses that we have and the requirements that we need, analyzing them, starting to design, which means not yet the actual development, the coding that gets into it, the effort that goes into it, the coding, the customization, the formulas, if there's any epics code that needs to be thrown in there. Implementation is what I'm putting into, let's say, the sandbox. It's do some of the testing to make sure that functionality is correct, which leads me to step number 5. There's a whole slew of testing, anywhere from unit testing to integration testing to functionality testing to performance testing. But on a higher level, we're more interested in unit testing, which is I as the developer, or we as the developers, are going to go in and test it ourselves to make sure that it works. So in the sandbox, me, myself, go in and test the position tab, the candidates tab, and our recruiting app works. Integration testing is when I take this and put it with the rest of the applications, because it might work, but when I try and do validation against something else or a different app with the name of the salespeople or something, that connectivity might not be there. So unit testing might work, integration testing might break it. And then finally is maintenance, when I move it into production as new requirements are coming in, or sometimes called evolution, is as new requirements are coming in and modifications and additions that are happening to that app. So I hope we got to see with this prerequisite course both sides of the field. We got to make sure that if we're in IT, we got to see how salespeople think before touching Salesforce. And if we are on sales team, we got to see how IT people think or what they expect to see before them uh, so that we can match and make sure that we have that good combination. Good luck with your journey in this course, and looking forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you.